Anyway, right, it is 12 o'clock in Amsterdam and 11 a.m. in the UK. So we will kick off this virtual roundtable. So hello to all of those that are joining us live, and hello to those of you watching this in a recording. We're currently talking to you. It is the 19th of August, 2020, that fantastic year, 2020, that we will all remember for a long time. And my name is Stephanie Jordan. I'm the co-founder of Avallen Spirits and also the founder of Drinking Out Loud Consultancy. And I'm really, really excited to be co-hosting this virtual roundtable today, which in my mind, I feel is an incredibly important one to the drinks industry. This session is called Growing Seeds, and we'll be talking about seed investment in drinks startups. And we have some incredible people, friends of ours, that have decided to give us a little bit of their time to share their stories and their insights. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to my co-host today. For once, it's not my favorite worker bee, Mr. Timothy Etherington-Judge, but it is actually Mr. Dan Gasper. Dan Gasper, the coach extraordinaire, who has dedicated a huge part of his career in basically coaching founders such as all of us present on this call, especially founders in the drinks industry. And Dan's been amazing at supporting and unlocking founders and entrepreneurs, in supporting them unlock their vision to really drive their mission with more impact, and I suppose really give people confidence to do what they're doing and do it at scale whilst keeping their independence. So Dan will be chairing this session, and we will be talking to four wonderful people. I'll start off by introducing you all to Louise. Hello, Louise.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Louise is the founder of JJ Corry Irish Whiskey Bonders, and her vision was very much around resurrecting the lost art of Irish whiskey bonding. So we're excited to hear from her. Then we'll be talking to Mr. Ruben Maduro, who is also in Amsterdam.
Hi guys.
Ruben has dedicated the past 5 years plus in basically creating a whole entire new category called botanical rum. And it's an incredible thing he's doing with a stunning distillery in the heart of the Dutch capital. We'll be talking to Anglo-Latina Ellie Webb, the founder of Caleno, a non-alcoholic tropical free spirit inspired by one of my homelands, Colombia. And super, super excited to be talking to Ellie, who you're in Bristol, right?
Yes, yeah, I am.
Fabulous. And then lastly, but never least, my brother-in-arms, Avallen's other co-founder and the man behind Healthy Hospo, Timothy.
Hi everyone. Timothy. I only got called Timothy when I was in
Timothy by your
trouble.
mother. Timothy Noel. Timothy Noel Etherington-Judge. That's a funny thing when you end up in business with people, you end up learning their whole entire names. Right. So without any further ado, I will now hand over to Dan, who's going to steer us through the next 20 minutes. Over to you, Dan.
Grand, thank you very much, and thanks for a great intro. So I thought it might be useful to start just a little bit of context about this space. I've been in drinks for 20 years this month. I started my journey in this space working for corporate drinks companies in sales and marketing roles. But after about 9 years, I kind of fell out of love with big brands and fell in love with startups and early stage businesses. Back then I was both the drink sales guy and a young consumer of them, and I was often horrified by the new products that were coming out of the corporate innovation departments that I was being asked to sell as a sales guy. Malibu lemon and lime flavour, anybody? So at the same time, I was seeing new independent craft spirits being launched by founders in the USA, and I totally fell in love. And what I realised over the next kind of 5 years was that what consumers want has radically changed, and it was being driven by kind of 4 big consumer themes that are disrupting food and drink trends all over the world. The first of those is provenance and authenticity. There's 2 generations of people who have a distrust for the man. They want to know who's making the products, where are they making the products, why are they making the products. Flavour exploration is another huge trend. Love that one, Malibu Red. Flavour exploration is a huge one. our parents' generation would have said, I've never tried that before, so I won't. Our generation would say, I've never tried that before, so I'd love to. Sustainability and localism, huge trend wandering around the world. It's no longer what's good for me is good for me, it's what's good for the world is good for me. And last but by no means least is health and wellness. And what does that mean for food and drink? It means we're eating and drinking less, but better. So these big consumer trends means that innovation is no longer driven by corporate innovation teams. It's driven by entrepreneurs and founders of modern drinks brands, much like the team that you're joined with today. And you don't have to just believe me. You can look at the data, the stats. Independent Spirits now accounts for over 5% of the global $200 billion spirits market. The biggest premium vodka in the world is a brand called Tito's, built by one man called Bert. The big corporate drinks companies have invested over $750 million into startups, 150 different startups in just the past 7 years. And at the same time, there's been 50 exits of independent drinks companies to corporate drinks companies, spending over $5 billion. Just yesterday, Aviation Gin, which was a founder-led drinks brand, initially sold for £335 million. So entrepreneurs and founders are driving innovation in drinks. Consumers want independent modern drinks brands. They're excited to find out more about new products. And at the end of that journey, if founders want to, there's a great deal of corporates looking to buy bright independent spirit brands. So I thought it was useful maybe to have a little bit of macro before we go into today's focus, which is much more on those earlier stages of independent drinks. All the founders here today are on a journey, and our focus today is very much on that kind of early stage of funding and how to use that money to grow seeds into the next generation of exciting drinks brands. So at this point, I'd really like to begin asking a few questions to the founders we're joined with today. Let's start with question number one. I'd love to talk a little bit about what point did your drinks startups need to raise additional funds after your kind of initial capital? Should we start with Louise?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I'm a whiskey business, so it's a tough one because unlike a lot of other spirits businesses, you know, whiskey is very capital intensive, and there's a 3-year wait, obviously, on it. So in order to get a whiskey business going, like you're staring down the barrel of a capital raise kind of from day one. But the way that I approached it is, obviously I don't have a distillery, which is very helpful. I don't have to throw a lot of capex at that. I just buy multiple stocks from other people, and then I blend them together to create our own unique house style. So the first raise that we ever did was on Kickstarter. This is back very, very early days, a non-equity based round of about £50,000. And the purpose of that was to honestly prove the concept more than anything else, because £50,000 gets you nowhere in the world of whiskey, really. I knew that if I raised 50,000, it was an achievable level. It was non-equity. It was a story that we were kind of telling to people and saying, would people buy into this concept? I knew that if I managed to garner that kind of really early seed capital just to get the brand going, that then I would have to go to angel or an equity friends and family kind of round. So for me, it was very quick. It was always going to be very quick because of the nature of the category that I'm in.
Interesting. And what about you, Ruben?
Well, yeah, for me, it was slightly different. I deliberately put in time and money of my own from the start, because I wanted to have a physical product and I wanted to have something tangible and also test the market before actually, you know, going around and asking people to invest. But I always knew it was going to be, it's going to be an expensive way of doing business, launching a brand, and you need to raise money for it. But I decided to do it in stages. So from day one, it was initially my own money, testing the product, testing the market, getting it out there, you know, getting proof of concept, and then decided to do a crowdfunding campaign as well, just to, you know, get people engaged with the brand, build a community around the brand, and to get some money to actually really start pushing it on a commercial level as well.
Interesting. And what about you, Ellie?
Yeah, so I guess similar to Ruben, kind of pulled together some cash in the really, really early stages, in the kind of inceptual stages, just to prove the concept. So this is, you're talking below 40K, just to, you know, get the product developed, the branding, get it to that initial stage. So you're ready for investment. And then we then raised capital quite early on, so about 3-4 months. So this is a larger chunk of capital. So 3-4 months before launching, we then went and raised a larger chunk. So we had that kind of runway ahead of launching into the market in beginning of 2019.
Fascinating. And so to the wider team, so what did you use your money that you raised for? You know, I think for a lot of the investors who'll be watching this, it's really interesting to know what are the different things that you use this capital for. Who'd like to start?
I'll go. I don't mind. So we had to buy a lot of liquid. That's kind of because we're sourcing certain liquid. We bought kind of raw materials, if you like. So we needed to purchase liquid and we needed to purchase casks to put it in. I did build a quite cheap building to store all of the whiskey in, because we needed to very much anchor ourselves here on the farm. And in the very, very early days, then the rest of the cash kind of went on, you know, designing the label and ensuring that the liquid and the blend was correct, and getting people involved in the liquid development piece and the blending element. You know, that's really kind of where it went. A good bit of money went, I would say, on T&E. Maybe not E, but certainly T, like travel. Not a lot. I haven't done a lot of entertaining since my corporate days, unfortunately. But a lot of kind of getting out there, traveling and meeting and presenting distributors, importers, people like that, you know. We spend a good chunk of money on that still, because, you know, we're very much a founder-led brand, and that's kind of the way we used to operate. But yeah, for us, it was liquid, developing the liquid, a bit on labels and stuff like that, and then getting out and meeting distributors and importers and people like that.
Shall I go next?
Yeah.
So obviously we're still in the middle of our crowdfunding raise at the moment, but we have identified kind of 3 pillars that money will be used for. I guess 2 of them are pretty standard across all brands. So using some of that money to drive sales and distribution in the markets that we're in, and also the 2 new markets that we've just opened up, so Spain and Australia. Obviously there's the marketing piece, and, you know, driving brand awareness through social media and some other marketing activities. But I guess what's slightly unique for us is because of our Planet Positive mission, is a piece of that money is going to be put towards our work around sustainability. So doing the measurement that we need to do around our carbon analysis, water usage, biodiversity, creating a strategy based off that research, and then putting all that into action. You know, because our mission is to be the world's most planet positive spirits brand. So we're constantly having to improve our performance and kind of measure and evaluate everything that we're doing, just to keep us at the top of the game.
Very interesting. What about you, Ellie? Sorry.
Yeah, no, fine. So the majority of that initial raise went on marketing, including events. We launched in January, which is a big month for No and Low, because it's dry January for a lot of people. We also launched into Sainsbury's, into around 500 Sainsbury's stores quite early on. So you can imagine a lot of that money up front was just paying for stock. We were on credit with a lot of our suppliers, so we had to pay for that up front and then kind of wait for payments, sort of 60-day plus, well, if you take into account the production, even longer.
Yeah.
So a lot of it went on fronting all of that. And yeah, and I think there was a little bit of money set aside for starting to build the team, because when I went into the business, it was just myself, so I kind of quite quickly needed some help with the operations and the logistics and the marketing.
Fascinating.
So yeah, I think the initial investment, the first one, was really to, because I realized really quickly early on that you needed, you know, we wanted to build the brand in the on-trade first, and to get it out there in the on-trade, you need to actually have time to sell. You need to go out and actually visit all those accounts and build those relationships. And for us, the whole market was important, or still is important, because it's a launching pad for new products, but also a great way of getting the product out and having kind of a lighthouse to then go out to other distributors, in different markets, to show that, the rum, it's working and people are buying into the concept. So I decided, and I was really lucky to get, my first brand ambassador in very early on, who's now a partner. And he's really done a great job at building the brand, or at least getting the sales done in our home market. And that allowed me to, that gave me more time to further develop the brand, to learn from what was going on, to work on the business a bit more than in the business, and also look at different markets also that could potentially also, bringing some sales.
Really cool. So a slightly different question I'd love to ask of you all next. Why do you think people invested in your company did so? Why do you think they were interested to invest in startup drinks companies? Ruben, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think there's a number of reasons. I think it really depends on. So let me put it differently. I think spirits are very, it's highly scalable. Basically, there's, people are drinking everywhere around the world. If you have a product that works, it's a matter of, plug and play. So I think, whereas if you're investing in a local business, a small business, then, there's obviously limitations to that. Whereas if you have a spirit brand, you can, there's countless of markets that you can go into. And that, that obviously adds the value. So and on top of that, it's something that can exponentially grow in value as well. So it's not just something that, obviously it's year-on-year growth, but then obviously you can make, really big listings and then kind of building up value really, really quickly. And that's obviously, I think, a good investment if you want return on it.
That's cool. What about you, Louise?
I think for me, certainly it was a combination of the category, which Irish whiskey is hot. It's been in double-digit growth for a long time, and it still has a really healthy trajectory. So the category was very solid and familiar to a lot of people. And then honestly, it was in me. Like a lot of people, I have a good background in the drinks industry, and people, I was convincing enough, and had a path laid out for the business that I think people felt enough confidence in me to run it. So it's a combination of the category and the person, or the jockey and the horse, as they say. So both of those things, I would say, is why. We have a lot of what I would call lifestyle investors in the early days. People who, family offices and individuals who are willing to put in money because it's a nice thing to be a part of a drinks company. It's a fun business to, in theory, it's more interesting to invest in this than toothpaste. It's a fun thing. It gives people social currency. If your investors can go to a dinner party with a bottle of whatever it is you have and say, I own, they'll walk in and say, I own this, let's drink it. It's a nice lifestyle piece for those early kind of friends and family investors as well, I think.
What about you, Tim?
Yeah, everything Louise said around kind of the social currency and people investing in the founders. Obviously, we're going through our kind of raise at the moment, and a lot of the comments that we're getting back and feedback from people is around our ethos and our mission around sustainability.
Yeah.
And people really want to get involved in that. There was a really interesting study by Nielsen in 2018 that found that 85% of people agreed that companies should have a positive impact on the environment. I think there's a lot of people out there that are looking to maybe get involved in companies that are doing something positive, whether it's for the planet, whether it's for social causes, ethical causes. People want their money to be used to do good things. So I think people have seen us as an opportunity for that, as well as the kind of the social currency that Louise mentioned, and Steph being an amazing saleswoman and co-founder.
Ellie, do you have a take on
That's
this?
me. Yeah, I think with Caleno and No and Low, in our case, we were quite an innovative space with not much in the market at the time. So the competition barriers were pretty low. I think I also had quite a strong vision around how I wanted the brand to show up in the world. So I was able to communicate that quite clearly. And I think that landed, you know, despite me not having prior business experience and being, you know, fairly young at the time. I think being able to communicate that vision clearly and the purpose of the brand was pretty key.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, in terms of our industry, you know, there's been a decline, but they kind of in alcohol, it's slow, but, you know, there's been a massive uptake in the no and low industry. I think it's currently growing at about 72%. So although it's a really small part of the overall pie, it's got huge potential to do well. So I think, you know, it was definitely a mixture. It has to be a mixture of the founders and what they stand for, but also what is the space about? Is it exciting enough to invest in?
Okay, interesting. And then I suppose a slightly different, a similar question, but slightly different. Why do you think it's a good idea for people to invest in startup drinks companies, if you do at all? Why do you think that's a good idea? Tim, do you want to start?
Yeah, there's definitely the piece around that social currency. So, you know, being able to go to your friend's house and slap that bottle down on the table. I said that. I think it's also an exciting space, both from, you know, booze is fun and that, but it's also the startup brands is where the innovation is. It's where, you know, like Ruben's creating a whole new category with botanical rum, Ellie's kind of championing the no and low, the non-alcoholic space, which has been so full of innovation in the last few years. You know, all of that interesting new stuff is not coming from the big producers. They've lost the ability to kind of innovate and create new brands, so they just buy them up. And then I guess there's also, you know, the potential for money to be made. There's the romance of the big sellout, and you could be the next Ryan Reynolds or George Clooney.
We need to get famous first, Tim, before we launch the spirits brand. We should have gone famous and then launched. Doing it the wrong way around.
Way to do it. Then you get a full 1 billion.
That's the formula, I think, these days. Yeah, it's working well.
I thought you guys were famous.
Only in my own shed.
Yeah.
And what about you, Ruben? What's your take on this?
So I think I actually answered this question just a minute ago, but it's in a similar thing. I think you know, I think spirit brands are exciting. I think there's a lot of new stuff happening, and I think people are looking for exciting new things. So if you hop on the right bandwagon, it's, you know, it's just a matter of, you know, going up, and adding value to whatever your investment is.
Ellie, Louise, any other additional takes on that?
Yeah, I mean, likewise, I agree with all your comments. I think startups are honestly where the real innovation happens. We've got the ability to move quickly, act on a trend. It's just something that the bigger companies can't do. You know, if we decide to do something, it can happen in 2 days, which would take bigger companies months, if not years. They just struggle to do it. So very often they end up missing the boat or coming late to the party. So yes, while startups are a risk, I think with the right capital behind them, which is often the missing piece, they have the absolute ability to fly.
Yeah, and I would agree with what everybody said, and I think what's, you know, let's not forget here, like things like Ryan Reynolds and you know, those kind of acquisitions are ultimately what it's all about for people. You know, I at the real core of it, like whilst I'm lucky to have some what I call lifestyle investors, they're not putting, you know, X 100,000 in or 50,000 in to go to their neighbor's house with a bottle of my whiskey. Like the game is that, you know, the acquisition landscape is such that people are taking notice of it to some degree. And I think we are very fortunate that the big guys they've nearly given up the ghost on true kind of innovation, and they can't, from an indie perspective, and they can't do what we do. And we're starting to reap the rewards of that as a kind of a sub-industry with all of these exits that you're seeing. So I think that carrot at the end of the stick can't be underestimated. You know, people are watching the Ryan Reynolds of the world and the aviation gins and that kind of thing. And that's what people are hoping for.
Super interesting. Stephanie, do you want to ask, is there any other questions you'd like to ask the group?
Yeah, okay. So very sort of quick question, which is I'd love to get across to either potential investors and or people that are looking to raise themselves. I think it's important maybe to reiterate that it's really, really hard to raise funds. Even if you have the amazing idea, you are the incredible founder and the category is in growth. It's very time consuming. On a 1 to 10, how hard have you found sort of fundraising across the years of your brands?
15, I would say. You know, it's God Almighty. Like it's the hardest thing, you know, and it takes you away from the business as well. And you can get really kind of sucked into it. Like, look, let's not beat around the bush on the gender piece either here. Like, raising money as a female founder of any brand in any category is a disaster zone. You know, it's really, really difficult. So I found it very difficult, and I have a really good network based on my kind of initial investors as well. Even crowdfunding, I remember doing it myself. It's a full-time job while the fund is going on. Don't underestimate how much time it'll suck out of you, and how much admin there is involved, particularly when you get to secondary rounds. Like, there's lawyers involved, there's accountants involved. It's expensive to raise money. You have to kind of steel yourself for it and read a couple of books about terminology around investment as well. Because it is, particularly for somebody like me coming from a corporate drinks background, it's a whole other world of acronyms as well. So it's really, really difficult. It's really vital. You have to steel yourself for it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's a minefield, and you have to skill up pretty quickly, pretty fast, and learn the name of the game. I won't say it was easy. I certainly found pushback just being lack of experience in running a business. I guess being quite a young solo female entrepreneur, there was definitely reservations around that. But I think, you know, you're never going to find people that are more committed to the cause in terms of driving the brand through to that success. But yeah, I mean, you've got to learn quickly. You've got to jump through the hoops. I think there's a lot of hoops. There's a lot of proving the concept. It's not enough just to say there's stats in this industry. What have you learned already about your brand, and taking those to the investment guys and just showing them, look guys, this is what we've proved already, and give us money and we can times this by 10.
And I'll add one other thing as well, just to what you're saying, Ellie, is that, like, you'll get a lot of no's. You'll get a lot of people who just don't get it. They don't understand it. They don't understand you. They don't believe in you. And they can be pretty mean and rude about it. But it's just part of the process. Like, you just have to get on to the next one. And, you know, the people who do invest in you are investing in you. And, you know, you just have to kind of steel yourself for it, like I said.
Ruben, I know you think, because you're literally you're giving us the carrot to keep us motivated, having done it tons of times before.
Yeah, it's ongoing, I guess. I think I find that, you know, for me, you know, fundraising it's highly stressful. I think that's the only word that hasn't been mentioned, because you're, you know, the way that I look at it, it's kind of this circle on fire, and it's just closing in, and you need to jump through it. And every time in the beginning, it just goes really, really quickly, and it's, you know, it's a very small kind of gap to get. So it's kind of like jumping through these hoops, like every time you need to raise money. And I think, you know, in the first round was, you know, the first bit, it's friends and family mostly, and it's relatively easy because they believe in you. But as soon as you need to go into, you know, people that, you know, like the brand or like the story, you know, you're going to get a lot of questions. You're going to get a lot of, you know, what ifs and buts and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's, as you haven't, you know, especially as a seed investment, it's very difficult to convince, even if you have a great product. But once you've kind of got that initial investment and you can actually show growth and you can show that it's actually working, I find it becomes easier as long as you know, keep the conversation going. And, you know, as they said it with DV, never waste a pitch. So always try to kind of look for either customers on, you know, obviously top end, but also investors, because you're going to need them one day. And I think that's what I've been doing mostly.
Well, guys, that's just about.
And we just had a couple of questions we might want to get to.
Yeah,
from our audience.
I think we're short on time, and we needed to wrap up at past. So we're very happy to take questions and email them back to you. I think this is just, it's a starting point of a conversation that a lot of us are having directly with each other. And that as entrepreneurs and founders, I think collaborating together in terms of just insights around fundraising and the headache that it is, the difficulties that you'll face, but also sometimes even sharing investors with each other is proving to be really, really powerful. I think together we can create a kind of alternative ecosystem to how we find these seeds and how we kind of water them to grow into the beautiful brands of tomorrow. I really want to thank Dan for taking some time to host us today. Dan, you add tremendous value to people such as ourselves, and we're very grateful that people like you exist and are able to coach us through, you know, these very important moments in the life cycle of our businesses. So Louise, Ellie, Ruben, thank you for sharing your insights. As I said at the start, Tim and I are coming to an end of our equity crowd fund. We're at 80%. We're still looking for a couple of investors to join our hive. And yeah, we hope to do more sessions like this. Again, I think sharing is caring. So thank you all very much. Any parting words, Tim?
No, thank you everyone who came along to watch. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Ruben. Thank you, Ellie. And thank you, Dan. If you would like to invest in our little crowd fund, there's the link on the screen. So please consider coming and joining our hive.
Fantastic.
Thank you, guys.
Have a
Thanks, guys.
Have a great week, everyone.
Have a great days.
Bye.
Bye-bye.